I'm a solo person, always have been. Do I get lonely sometimes? Yes. Is it because I'm solo? Well, occasionally, but sometimes there are also advantages. Being solo gives me scope to deal with my feelings of loneliness. What I've learned is that from a distance, solo and lonely can get confused. They can look the same, but it's not my experience they're the same at all. And even loneliness itself isn't just one thing. This surprised me when I thought about it. But I'm here now to explain exactly that. How loneliness shows up in different ways, and it has to do with different needs. And I address it sometimes this way, sometimes that way. That's what I'm here to talk about today. Before I get any further, please hit that subscribe button. It lets YouTube know that we seniors need more content that is genuine, authentic, that tells us what we need to do, that gives us a sense of community. The subscribe button really helps with that. As for the likes, I really appreciate those personally. They make me feel good at the end of the day. Sometimes I have to work really hard on a video, and it's always nice to get encouragement. So thanks. Before I get too analytical, I did mention already that I'm a solo. I've always been a solo. I've never had a live-in partner. I've never had kids. I like it that way. But yes, if you look at solo, it can very often look like a lonely existence. But that's not especially my experience with it. I suppose that might be because I've been that way forever, but who knows? Maybe it's just who I am. Perhaps too, I feel that way, that solo is not necessarily in any way associated with loneliness because I'm an introvert. I know it might not seem like I am, but honest to goodness, I've been tested, officially tested, years and years ago now. I'm an introvert, tried and true. And what does that mean for the sake of this conversation? Well, I'm very engaged with myself in terms of how I keep myself going. I don't need as much coming in from the outside as someone who's more extroverted. That's the best way I can describe it right now, or at least that's what matters for the moment. So what I have to say comes from that point of view, and I do understand that if you're solo and an extrovert, your sense of the matter, it will be different. As will your sense of the matter if you've recently become solo or haven't had that much experience with it. So understand as I get going, talking about the different kinds of loneliness that I experience and how I address them. Understand that that comes from years of being a solo and hasn't required any recent adaptation. It's not a new thing to me. Not in the last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30, my whole life since childhood. I've been solo. So I mentioned up front that I discovered as I thought about this topic, so I could talk about it today, there are different kinds of loneliness. I don't think I discovered this for myself before. I thought I'd give you some examples and how I address them. And I just know you're going to have some more ideas about different types of loneliness and what to do about them. And I'm sure they'll be helpful for everyone, so write them in the comments. Especially this time of year as we go into fall and early winter. I know for me and for many seniors, that's a time when loneliness can really set in. So yeah, be generous with your comments. It helps everyone. So here's my first example of loneliness. And I suppose this is the most common one for me. I'm kind of a lively person internally as well as out in the world. I get bored easily. So sometimes when I feel lonely, what it really is, I'm bored. I need to be doing something. As a kid, I had a whole array of the kinds of things that would help me with boredom. I was more into crafts then. I did a lot of knitting, embroidery. I sewed my own clothes. That was always a winner if I was bored. There's something about being creative and completing a project that's a very satisfying way of working through boredom. To me, I also play musical instruments and like to sing. That could keep me occupied for hours. Just the sound, the few skills I developed, and being in a different world. Playing music helped me there. These days, not so much. I've had to arrive at different kinds of things to occupy me a bit when I'm feeling bored, or to do things that keep me from getting bored. Because in those instances, bored and loneliness can collide. And I don't like that feeling. So if those things that I've done over the years no longer fuel me or make me feel less bored, bring on that feeling of loneliness, I have to dig a little bit deeper to find out what I really need. And here's what it tends to be for me. I need brain sparkle. Brain sparkle. I need to have flashes of brilliance. That'll do it for me. Whether it's a creative idea, whether I'm writing something and enjoying the words, whether I'm watching something and seeing how someone handles the universe, that's for me. I don't mean something passive. I mean something that makes me feel lively. And so right now I'm making videos. That's quite absorbing. It's very hard to have a moment when I notice boredom and that feeling of loneliness that strikes when I'm bored. A second kind of loneliness I notice is the need for engagement. There'll be times when I crave that. I want to knock about with someone else's brains, and not really in a personal way. Since I was really young, I've been into mystery stories, way back in the day. There were times when that was the only thing available to read, so I got in at full bore. I mean, all of Agatha Christie. Well then, in the course of time, true crime came along. And then I found out that I like to communicate with people online, speculating about crimes. I know this doesn't interest everyone, but my latest thing, I like to watch trials. I'll watch the whole trial, but not just by myself. What I like is the engagement that comes along with it, with bouncing ideas and speculations and reactions with others as the trial progresses. And I suppose what draws me to those too is that trials very often are vast soap operas, and they go on for days. Last winter, right around the holidays, I did just that. Everyone else in my universe seemed to be occupied with something entirely else that didn't involve me, but there I was, glued to a trial. Oh, it was a juicy one, every moment. And I wasn't watching by myself. There was a whole community out there busy with reacting, talking about it, speculating, throwing in their personal knowledge or expertise. I love communities like that. I'll put a link to my favorite trial coverage in the description. And yeah, it's not for everyone. A third kind of experience I have with loneliness is that sense of working together with others towards a goal. Maybe this is the hardest one to reproduce if you're living solo after retirement. It's a situation you have to create for yourself, in my experience. I still work, and this is one of the reasons I still work. I find that I need to be in a context where others are about having the same goal. It's kind of like teamwork towards a common, agreed upon outcome. Without that, I tend to feel like I'm living in a vacuum. I don't know about you, but I don't like that feeling. From work, I like the blend of support, interaction, even superficial interaction, comparing notes, sharing ideas with others. I really enjoy that in small doses. I no longer work a lot of hours. And along with work goals, there's always random chit-chat and interaction with people you might not have met before, who might be interesting or not, but they keep us lively. For me, it keeps my mind fresh. As an older person, I've always been in context with a wider demographic than you'd expect in a normal office. I've had a relaxed kind of job, easygoing, no formality at all. For a long time, I worked in outdoor retail. I don't write at the moment. Just a few hours a week. I specialized in travel, hiking, backpacking, camping, those kinds of things, as well as women's apparel. And I really enjoyed those hours for the most part. And here's what it did for me. I loved my colleagues. I liked having them in my life. Did I know any of them very well? No. But I could appreciate their brightness, what they brought to the world, their personalities, and how they grew over the years. That was so fun to me. And here's the other aspect, and I'm so disappointed that we have very little of this left in the world anymore. I would meet casually random people, customers, and we'd have long conversations, people I never met. Oh, sometimes I'd see again people I hadn't seen for years. When I was putting clothes on a hanger one year, I was on one side of the fixture and I looked up, and there was my camp counselor from 40 years ago. She had the same haircut. So I recognized her. That was fabulous. But in general, I'd engage with conversations with all kinds of people I'd never meet otherwise. And they'd be intense conversations, even just for a moment. And I was lucky enough to be working in a store where they really fostered that kind of thing. They let me do however much of it I liked. And I felt it gave customers a really good experience about being there. And yeah, it's too bad we no longer have that context because everyone's buying stuff online. There's not so much casual bumping into people you knew once upon a time, or just chance encounters with whoever's out there in the universe that you might have something in common with in that particular moment. My boss looked over at me once. I was having an intense conversation with a customer, and he said, "Oh, you two have known each other for a long time. Isn't that wonderful?" And we both laughed. We had just met. But yeah, we were enjoying each other for that moment. That kind of thing is very important to me. And it's impossible to be lonely when that's what's happening. A fourth kind of loneliness, I don't think can be helped in quite that way. It goes like this. It's more about the world dumping too much on you. Suddenly, you're done. And you might not realize you're done, but this feeling of loneliness comes over you. To my mind, the only way I can handle that is drop everything and go take an adventure. Now, here's where the challenge of being solo comes in. Because if you're with someone, they can very easily spot this and tell you to leave it. Grab you by the hand and drag you out of the door into something totally else. And if they know you well, they'll know what the totally else is. If they don't, well, you might be into something you didn't expect, but at least you'd be out of the situation. A few weeks ago, this exact thing happened to me, and I did a video about it. I got all of a sudden totally overwhelmed. I'm doing way too much, or at least I felt that all of a sudden in a moment. And I knew that was a time where, to heck with it, forget everything. I've got to take a break. And so I did. I got in my car, took brekkie, and we went up the road looking for the season's first strawberries. We had a nice little drive for the afternoon, looked at some different scenery. It got me out of myself. And there was no room for loneliness because there was so much looking. My curiosity was getting satisfied. I was interacting with myself, engaging, getting filled up again with ordinary things, with the universe. Oh, and getting filled up with strawberries too. That. Now, I know one way to do this is to take a vacation, and I have done plenty of that in the course of time. But for me as a solo, I tend to feel quite lonely on elaborate vacations. I went to Hawaii one year. It was the worst trip ever. I was so lonely. And I didn't have my usual ways to jump out of it. Shorter vacations, especially camping, I love to putter around, and there's a lot of activity I can do that doesn't cost anything. That feels good to me. 2 days of that, and I feel satisfyingly disrupted. My loneliness backs off, and I go back to my regular routine with some of my overwhelm offloaded. Now, I do have a type of loneliness that can be what I call rerouted or rerouted. What do I mean? One of the most lonely times for me can be sitting at a table to eat, to have a meal. Why? Because there's so much history from years of sharing tables with other folks, enjoying that community, the meal together, even how the utensils are placed on the table. There's chatter in my brain, family laughter, memories of people who are no longer here. That's very hard for me. But guess what? I don't have room for a table. I mean the kind of table you'd eat off or work off. I don't have one of those. Too much square footage. And this has worked out to my advantage because I'm not putting myself in a place that's complex for me in terms of loneliness. I eat off my lap. And I no longer have to make food for other people. I'm not a good cook, or at least I don't feel I'm a good cook. So I can fill my plate with nourishing food for me and eat it for me on my lap, taking care of myself. So the loneliness of a shared eating experience, which I no longer have or rarely have, I don't visit with that every day. That's my workaround. Now, sometimes I have the kind of loneliness, I bet you can identify with this. I just need people noise in the background. I don't even have to be engaged with it. I just need to know there's folks out there. Now, sometimes I do what I'm sure many of you do. You turn on the TV, I turn on my computer, and I watch something intermittently, or I just play noise. Someone talking, I don't know about what. Music, a podcast, something or other. I tend to need human voices. And I can get about the little things I have to do in my house. But I need half my brain to be occupied with human noise. Perhaps some of you watch sports this way. I'm not a football fan, and I think if I were, I tend to see watching football as kind of a community thing, a group activity. So I guess I'm glad I'm not into football. I'm really into surfing. No, I'm not a surfer. I'm deathly afraid of water. But a few years ago, in one of my loneliness spells, it had to be this, right? And I was bored. I watched a random movie about surfing. It was free. It was there. It was offered to me. So I watched it, and I was all in. And I found almost 24/7 there's a surfing competition going on. And if I don't know the personalities, that's fine too, because I love to see those few gifted people who move with waves. I wish I could do that in so many arenas in my life. I envy that. That facility to work with what you have and to move with the world around you. I find that spectacular to watch. Am I glued to it? Yeah, sometimes. But often I have it going in the background while I'm doing something else. And if something exciting is coming on, or one of my favorite surfers is about to surf, I scurry back to this spot, get myself a cup of tea, and settle right down. There's no room for loneliness when I'm doing that. Oh, and the scenery, the palm trees, the lagoon water, the colors. Places I can fantasize about being. I don't always feel compelled to go there, but every once in a while I'll see something in the universe of surfing and I'll think, oh, perhaps one day. Seeing something that gives me delight, makes me use my imagination. There's no way loneliness can settle there because I feel so alive. As I talk about being lonely and some of the ways I address it in myself, overall, in my experience, being solo has made it easier for me to reach for ways not to be lonely. Why? I can cater to my own needs. I haven't had to fit them around someone else's, which I could see as more of a challenge. Maybe that's because I'm used to, I'm all I have. Solo, when you've just gone through a loss, oh, that can be desperately lonely. In the company of another person, when you're not getting your needs met, well, that can seem very lonely too. And alas, all of us have some form of loneliness. It's part of the human condition. And sometimes I just have to recognize that. I don't have ways for dealing with my every little crumb of loneliness. Sometimes I just have to say to myself, oh, it's that thing. It's back. It'll come again. Right now it's here. Nothing in the world will satisfy it, slake it, remove it, make it comfy. It just is. And that it's not about being solo. It's about being a human. Now, I recognize that for seniors especially, the months that we have coming up, fall and early winter, can be especially a time when we can get very lonely. It can sometimes seem that we've been forgotten. Other people are getting on with the excitement of the holidays, and somehow we're not in it. That can be very isolating and bring on feelings of loneliness. Here's what I think would be helpful to everyone. If you have ideas about what to do with loneliness or how you think about it, and I'm sure plenty of you do, please write them in the comments. And for those of you who are looking for a little nugget in the weeks and months ahead, I bet you'll find something that'll speak to you there. And that's it for now. It's a lot. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll talk soon, all right? See you then.